BookTube, and welcome to another weekly reading vlog. These are the books that I've been working on this week. Although unfortunately not very well. I have not made a lot of reading progress this week, but I'll talk about that in just one second. First of all, I've got a little bit of a library book haul. I'm counting this as a book haul. I got out volumes 3 and 4 of the Three Kingdoms. Now I'm right in the middle of volume 2 right now, and I had been checking them out as I was reading them. That was the plan. But I've decided I'm just going to check them all out. The reason I was reluctant to check them all out at first is when I was doing Journey to the West, which was another Chinese classic in 4 volumes. I checked them all out at once, and then I had overestimated my reading speed, and so the books became due before I finished all 4 of them. So then I just returned them to the library and I started checking them out as I needed them. But I've got them all checked out because a couple reasons. One is Tet is coming up, Vietnamese Lunar New Year. So I want to stock up on my reading material for Tet. Secondly, I want to push myself to make faster progress on this series. So having a library due date looming over me might push me a little bit more. And thirdly, I was just paranoid about the other 2 volumes going missing, where I was still in the middle of volume 2. You know, somebody checks them out, not realizing that they're part 3 of a 4-volume series, or the books get misplaced or something. You never know. I mean, the last thing you want to do when you're reading through this epic classic is get all the way to volume 4 and then discover it's gone missing from the library. So just to help me sleep better at night, I've got all 3 of these on the bookshelf now. Volume 1, I've returned to the library. So if somebody wants to get started on volume 1, it's in the library for you. I'll try and move through the rest of these quickly. The other library book haul I got is some comic books from the library, which is Batman Knightfall Volume 2. And then I decided Batman Knightfall Volume 3, Knightsend, was also on the bookshelves of the library. And once again, I decided, rather than take a chance that this could be gone by the time I finish Volume 2, just check them both out together so I can read them both together. Batman Knightfall Volume 1, I read last year and reviewed on this channel last year. Volumes 2 and 3 were not in our library at that time, but Batman Knightfall Volume 1 was one of the most checked out books from the graphic novels section last year. So I ordered volumes 2 and 3, or requested that the library ordered it to accompany that. So these are now in the library, and I've got both of them. The idea is that the students are supposed to read them, but I promise to try and work through them quickly. In fact, Batman Knightfall Volume 2, I'm making good progress on. This week, I got this book, I checked it out of the library on Wednesday, and up to 446, page 446. Now, I know these are comic books, and so the page counts don't count as much as when reading print material. And yet, getting up to page 446 still represents an investment of, I don't know, several hours this week. It's not reading a print book, but it's not nothing either. So if you're not familiar, the premise behind this whole trilogy, this was a seminal Batman event that happened in the 90s, early 90s, when I was actually reading comics at the time. So I'm familiar with it, and it's got a lot of nostalgia for me. A few of these issues I actually bought off the newsstand, although not the whole not the whole series by any means. I didn't have enough money to follow the whole series. I was only in high school at the time. But comic books can be expensive. But in the first volume, Batman gets his back broken by Bane. In the second volume, a new guy steps in as Batman. So there's a replacement Batman who is much more brutal and aggressive than the regular Batman. And then the third volume in the trilogy is Batman returning to reclaim his mantle from the replacement Batman. So this is volume 3. I'll get to that later. Volume 2, like I said, has been the bulk of my reading this week. I know I should have been reading the classics, but it was... Comic books are easy to read when you're in the mood for some light reading, and this, like I said, had heavy nostalgic value for me because I was in high school at the time and was collecting comics, so it was an opportunity to reconnect with my youth. That being said, though, I think now that I'm 400 and how many was that? 446 pages in, starting to get a little sick of it. Although the overarching story is about the replacement Batman, within it, it's episodic. It's, each issue is Batman fights the bad guy for that issue. And after a while, you just, I don't know. I think it's great fun when you're young, but it reminds me that there was actually a reason I stopped reading comics by the time I was about 16 or 17, why I grew out of it. Because it is just, there's a villain, there's a fight scene at the end, Batman wins. Next issue, there's a villain, there's a fight scene at the end, Batman wins. Next issue, etc. Although the overarching storyline within which all these little episodes fits in together is interesting. I don't know. I suspect my progress is going to slow down a little bit this week, but based on how much progress I made this past few days, I should finish this off before too long, and then I'll come back and give it a proper review. So that was the bulk of my reading. And then I didn't make very good progress on the rest of the books. The Three Kingdoms I read from page 780 to 820 up to chapter 46. So 40 pages read of this. Only 4 pages read from the Mirror and the Light, and 6 pages read from the Jerusalem Bible. So that's a total of 50 pages for this week. Comic books don't count towards my regular page count. This may be a bad time to mention this, but I've decided my goal for 2024 is to try and do 200 pages a week. That's an ambitious goal for me, but that's what I want to try and do. And this week I got 50, so we're off to a bad start. But you know how these New Year's goals go. They take a bit of adjustment before you figure out if they're going to work within your schedule. The other problem with New Year's goals is I've got a few of them. One goal for this year is I'm going to try and finish off Duolingo for the Vietnamese language. And I actually spent a ton of time just practicing Duolingo. Duolingo, if you're not familiar, it's got a lot of different levels and a lot of different lessons, but not an infinite amount. So it is possible to completely work through a language and finish it off. I know one person who completely finished off the Vietnamese language, and I'm hoping to try and do that this year. after kind of putzing around on Duolingo for years now, ever since like 2016. You know how it goes. I start doing it, I stop doing it, I start doing it, I stop doing it. I make some progress, I stop doing it for a while, I forget everything, that kind of thing. But I really want to make this the year I tackle Duolingo. So my Duolingo goal kind of ran into conflict with my reading goal for this week. But 200 pages is my goal. That's based on a couple of different things. One thing is I noticed a lot of booktubers are setting 2024 goals in terms of number of books read. But that just seems kind of silly to me. And maybe this is a reflection of the type of books I read. Because if you watch this channel, you'll know I read a lot of big classic books, and I also read a lot of short children's books. So, like I'm working through the 4 volumes of Romance of the Kingdom, but this past year I also read Harriet the Spy. So if you count these both as one book, it doesn't really seem to make sense to me. And I think probably what's going on is a lot of other booktubers are reading more books of predictable length. Like just normal novels maybe that are always about 300 to 400 pages. But since the books I read vary in length a lot, it doesn't make sense to measure it by the number of books read in a year. I'd rather go with the number of pages. I used to have a goal many years ago of getting 20 pages a day read, which was a push for me. 20 pages a day was about an hour of reading for me. And it was also about the limit of my attention span. Like, I'd be in the coffee shop reading, and by the time I get to page 20, I'd start to get a little bit antsy and want to stand up and do something else or walk around or something. It's about the limit I could sit down for one period. So 20 pages a day would be 140 pages a week. And even that is pushing myself a little bit, but I wanted to just round it up to 200 and try and push myself even further. The other reason is I've been watching a lot of other booktubers who do a book a week. And 200 pages is getting close to a book. It's not quite a book unless it's a small book, but it's close to that. So I want to push myself to getting close to a book a week done. I'm not doing well so far. Only 50 pages this week, but we'll see how I do for the rest of the year. That's going to be my weekly goal to get that done. All right. Thank you very much, BookTube, and I will see you next week.